But hey, guys, and I got to believe, the announcements today, you guys had the press conference. John, I'm assuming today wasn't the first time you were in the building, and I'm assuming this hasn't been the first time you've talked to either DA or Ben either. Work starts right now, doesn't it? Or has it already started before this presser?
I mean, it's already started. Ben's been killing it here. Obviously I'm catching up to speed on some of the things just in-house. But, these guys have been great. They got everything set up and ready to go.
Guys, I've got questions about the structure and all that, but actually my most immediate question is just about the draft that is tomorrow. And, you're sitting there without any picks as of now. How active are you guys going to try to be to get into the draft?
Well, we'll always be aggressive trying because that's the name of the game, and you identify targets in the draft and you want to figure out where you have to get to get your guy. If you know anything about Tim Conley's aggressiveness and Calvin and Masai, who was here before, we've learned from leaders who have always been aggressive and will continue to do so.
Hey, when you look at this draft, either one of you who's been scouting it, how deep is it? And are there guys that may not get drafted tomorrow that are going to be able to help NBA teams?
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head. I think the front end of the draft will be pretty deep for teams who kind of need young talent to come in and have a big impact. But I think after that, it's kind of more so a fit. Some of these teams now are kind of handicapped when it comes to the financial restrictions, so they have to find guys that fit into a window that can give them, a level of play early on. But there might be some pretty good players that slide to the undrafted space. And like Ben said, we're going to keep our eyes and ears to the street, do our intel, and kind of see what shakes our way.
And if you remember last year, Trey Alexander is a guy that slipped through the draft, and we got him on a two-way. He ended up as G League Rookie of the Year. So there's always going to be guys that are good that are there.
How big? And I asked Josh the same question, and DA talked about it at his presser. And Josh, John, by the way, gave you a lot of kudos working with Jamal. How big this summer is development for not only the core four? Listen, Larry Bird used to say the summertime was for him to get better, and he just won a NBA championship, the MVP, and all that type of stuff. But how big is this summer, in particular this summer for this team as far as development?
It's huge. I think you mentioned Jamal, so we can speak on Jamal. I've spoken to Jamal before, and he has a self-awareness where he knows what he needs to do. And I think that's step one. And so from there, it's just, meet him, kind of tell him what our expectations are and challenge him a little bit. He's a really good player. When him and Jokic are together in that two-man game, it's pretty special to watch. So I think he knows what he needs to do. He'll come in being his natural self and be ready to go.
When you look at some of the best teams around the league, they have an identity. The OKC defense, Boston jacking up threes. I'm interested in a simple question that maybe doesn't have a simple answer from the two of you. What is the Denver Nuggets' identity, in your opinion?
The identity is – so good point. You said other teams have defense. Denver's identity is that they can play to any style. Obviously, you have a main cog in Jokers where you can play through him in a pivot position, but you have defense, you have shooting with size, you have playmaking, you have guys that can come off the bench, you can be a spark plug, you have guys that can come off the bench and be defenders. So you have a mix-up of what you need. It's just a matter of fine-tuning it back together, and I think – Coach Adelman is a very creative coach, and I think he'll be able to get some really good results out of these guys.
Josh in his previous pressers has talked about the core four, and John, I think it was you today that mentioned it as well. Do you guys view keeping these core guys intact as the best plan, or are you guys open to a bold move trading one of them?
Look, at this point, we really like those guys. We know what they can do, and they've won a championship before. So to answer your question, yes, we want to run that right now with those guys. Now, I can't speak to the future. I don't know what that holds, but, we have a great core group, and we have trust in those individuals.
And Ben, you've been working in contracts and the salary cap. You're probably the brainiac in the organization when it comes to all that stuff because everybody else needs one of those Chinese abacus things to figure out what the salary cap is, and one apron and
they
two
call
aprons.
those calculators now.
Yeah, well, listen, the calculator doesn't even work with what the NBA is doing. How will that change in this offseason in your anticipation? And how, without giving any trade secrets away, how do you think you guys are going to be able to maneuver the salary cap, the first apron, the second, all that different stuff between now and opening night?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, if you look at our roster, we feel like we're very comfortable bringing this group back. I think it's important to add depth and kind of hit on the margins. We do have roster spots. We'll be aggressive and look at everything. It's possible we'll have the tax mid-level to spend. If you spend that, your hard cap, there's different things with the aprons that get triggered. But we do feel really comfortable with the ability to add depth to the team and within the salary cap parameters. And it's not just me. We have a great group of people in the front office that do a great job with this stuff too.
Yeah, but you got executive now in front of your name. Harry Truman said something about the buck stopping somewhere, and I think that's at your desk right now.
No, I take the responsibility for sure.
To each of those last two questions, though, Christian Brown is an interesting conversation. He was a very important part of that championship team and a very important starter last year. Do you guys view him as part of the core going forward, and do you hope to get an extension with him at some point?
Absolutely. I mean, Christian brings a level of grit and toughness, transition ability, that every team would love to have. And so obviously we value that at a high level. So, our expectation is to get something done. Can I speak to the terms of that right now? No. But, that's the goal.
Hey, I ain't going to say nothing because I don't think you can say it anyway, John. I think Nikhil Alexander Walker is a free agent. I just throw that out there.
That's when the lawyer in me comes and shuts it down. No.
It's already working together. That's how it works.
Teamwork.
And let me ask you this. I read a great article today on Cooper Flagg. And before we get into conspiracy theories on how Dallas actually won that pick, we'll leave that to the side. How has a kid that young been able to do and move through the ranks that he's moved through? And I know last year he was practicing against Team USA at 17. I think he was 17 last year. John, you've probably seen him play a lot. Yeah. Why is this kid so special? And are there more Cooper Flaggs out there that we're going to see in the future?
I mean, you guys have been around this thing for a long time. You go to the combine, you talk about the measurements and the lane agility and the vertical jump. All that is cool. But what he has that a lot of the guys at his level didn't have, he had feel at such an early age, and he played against adults at a young, early age. So he learned subtle nuances and counters and tricks to go to his game, and obviously being well coached. I mean, that you can't discount that. And so many different avenues to play basketball now at the grassroots level. And so he's tested his skills against the best, and that's led him to this point.
Can you discount basketball knowledge at all when you're looking at building a team?
You can't. I think that's got to be one of the things at the forefront because you have so many players that are so multidimensional that you have to be able to think the game out if you want to play fast. And that's what a lot of people forget. And so I think you got to have that at the foundation, both on the sidelines as well as on the floor.
You got the draft tomorrow. You got free agency June 30th, I believe. What would you guys define as your top priorities over the next week or two?
I think, I said earlier, shooting. You need to get some shooting with some size, preferably off the bench to counteract those rotation changes. And then another defender. I think you got to have another defender, point of attack defender that can help aid with some of the penetration and obviously help rebound to help out big fellas. So those people would be prioritized.
Hey, that's the mantra. Help out big fella.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Tins and I was talking about that during the playoffs. Help out big fella.
Yeah.
That's all it is.
Speaking of helping out big fella, Russell Westbrook helped a lot last year. Do you guys anticipate talks with him, bringing him back, him being in the fold next year?
Yeah, obviously Russell was awesome for us all year, and we love him as a person and a player, and we're open to everything. And when the time comes, we'll get into all that.
We'll see where it goes from there. Hey, and now I'm gonna ask John real fast. So now, because you're back in Nuggets, dog. Yeah. Kind of where you started. I know you had a little gig somewhere, but I mean, let's be honest, dog. You got more Nugget blood in you than Wolfie. Tim Connelly, and I've told him this. He was dead to me after he left here. I told him, and so that goes for Tenzer too. As much as I love you and knowing you forever, if you go somewhere else, you'll be dead to me. But hey, he went down to Minnesota, and this is a compliment. I've always taken this as a compliment for the Nuggets. He went to Minnesota and said, we got to be able to beat that team. And I thought his strategy was to beat the Denver Nuggets. Would that statement be far off? I
wouldn't go as far as say that was said verbatim.
Right.
to be competitive in the West, to be competitive overall, yes. But I think he knew, and at the time when I was there, you had to come in with a defensive strategy that could negate so much penetration, so much creativity that these new age players have. And you got to remember, at the time, it was frowned upon to have two bigs when he had Rudy and Cat.
Right.
But, you know, Tim had the ability to project, as he taught us when we came up through the ranks, be able to project and not be so rigid in your viewpoints.
You know, you guys are young, but I actually played against Samson and Elijah when they played together. So two bigs, I always thought everybody's supposed to have two bigs that can play like that. Again, I always said that. I thought Tim came in there and said, you know, we got to beat the Nuggets. And the whole West, I understand. But listen, the Nuggets were the creme de la creme when Tim left. He helped build that team up to this level. And then when he brought Rudy in, we went, okay. He needs to find a big fella to help Cat, to help stop number, as you called number 15, the big fella a while ago. Yeah. And the problem with that, John, I'll be honest with you. Y'all could beat Denver, but you couldn't beat nobody else.
He's on fire today.
He's really dishing them out today. All right, fellas. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Next time you be on, D-Mac will be here, and he'll be a Syracuse guy. So, John, I'm sure he's going to give you a little bit.
All right.
Come on now.
Here we go.
Thank you guys so much.
Hey, how come Patrick didn't work out in Georgetown? That's my guy right there.
I wasn't in that room. I love Patrick. I think he's
Yeah.
a great coach. He's going to get a shot somewhere else.
Yeah, that's my guy right there.
All right.
Yes,
Well,
sir.
thank you, fellas. We appreciate you taking some time to join us.